So if you haven't heard yet, it's all come out. The can has been opened on Jada Pinkett's affair with August Alsina, which apparently lasted a few years. August has seemed to be somewhat silent on this whole matter, so who knows whether he's loving it or hating it. And whenever the Smiths need to talk about something, the red table is where they do it. So let's go through and dissect everything that they say and what we can take from this whole fiasco. And of course, do not forget, if you're new here, to subscribe, because I'm here to lead you to the relationship that you desire. Now let's get into the video. The first thing we have to take from them is that open, honest dialogue is arguably the most important thing in any relationship. It's not just black and white. It's not as simple as, oh, she did this, so she's out, or he did this, so he's out. These two are living proof that it takes constant capability of effort and listening and understanding, and even to try and understand the things that you really don't want to. But if you want your relationship to grow and to stand the test of time, then there are going to be some growing pains in that. So right out the gate, you could see that Will is hurting. This whole thing hurt him, or is hurting him, or opened up some old wounds. And even though he's the one in which the crime has been perpetrated on, he is there to express and to listen. Because yes, it's about recognizing and acknowledging the wrongdoing, but it's also about trying to understand why it happened, how it happened. Human beings, we have a reason why we do anything, apart from paying for an OnlyFans account in which you can see that stuff on the internet for free. Yeah, it still doesn't make sense to me. So after they first talk about why they wanted to do this, because the media said things that wasn't true and they just want to clear the air and so on, Will starts off by going, "So what happened, Jada?" In a kind of like, tell the world what you did kind of way. And yeah, sure, that was a little bit of a poke at her, but that's understandable. This is difficult for him. They talk about how August Alsina first came into their lives back in 2015 at like a concert because he was ill, which was true. Turns out he has autoimmune disease, which is where the body's immune system is constantly fighting against itself. So it can make you very ill a lot of the time. So Will and Jada and the entire Smith family were there to support him, I think physically or mentally. I'm not sure what kind of role they played. And Will and Jada both admit on the table that they took some time away from each other. They'd been together for a long time. They were obviously going through a bit of a rough patch, and they just decided, you know, they needed to have some space. And as Will says, they took this time apart so that she could go figure out what makes her happy and he could go figure out what makes him happy. And this is really important that the rest of us can take note of. You have to know how to make yourself happy before you can make anyone else happy. A relationship should never be the source of your happiness. It should add to your happiness, of course, but it should never be the source of it. Knowing how to be happy as an individual is all part of loving yourself. And if you can't love yourself in the right way, then how can you expect to love somebody else in the right way? And this sounds like what they might have been going through. So Jada then says, you know, when they were having some space from their marriage or whatever, that she got into a entanglement with August. And then Will's like, nah, you need to say exactly what you did. It was a relationship. As if the word entanglement is gonna make it seem less bad. Now, I don't know the ins and outs and the difficulty of their marriage, but August Alsina comes in as a friend of the family. Will and Jada are on a break, and then suddenly August and Jada are now a thing. It just seems a little bit suspect that it just kind of came out of thin air. Kind of feels like, you know, there was something maybe a brewing, but maybe they never acted upon it until, you know, they could justify it. Definitely seems like a Twilight love triangle where, you know, she's got her OG man, but then when they're having an off day, she runs to her guy in the woods. But anyway, Jada goes on to express how August said that there was a kind of permission from Will during his relationship with Jada. As in, Will knew what was going on, but then because him and Jada won a break, he was kind of okay with it. It's not really explained exactly what he meant by that. She then goes on to say that a big reason why her and August happened was because she felt she was broken. You know, she held a lot of pain. To which Will then asks her, So what was it that you were looking for? And this is something that we have to ask when there's any kind of cheating or infidelity in a relationship. What was that person looking for? Because answering this question reveals that whether it was something about the other person, whether it was something about the individual who did the cheating, or whether it was something about the current relationship that they were in. And her response to that was that she was in a lot of pain and she just wanted to feel good, that it had apparently been a long time since she felt good. So it sounds like in this case, it had everything to do with the individual, being her. And she explains about how she reflected on her codependence on wanting to fix other people, you know, as opposed to fixing herself. Now, this isn't to say that having codependence is a bad thing. In fact, having codependence with someone that you love can be an amazing thing for many different scenarios, whether that's parenting or a big life event or when you're going through an illness. It just has to be the right kind of codependence. Otherwise, it can be a very unhealthy and unbalanced relationship. And then she goes on to say that she doesn't see it as a transgression. It's a bit of a transgression, Jada. You're wrong about that one. You're in a marriage that hadn't ended and you went off with someone else. That's a transgression, even by law. But then what she says next is what raises the eyebrow in this entire conversation. She says that as she started to reflect on things about herself and thinking about her marriage and stuff like that, that August then distanced himself from her entirely. Like radio silence, broke all communication with her. So wait, that means that he called it off, not you. And to be honest, I was a little bit disappointed at Jada at this point because she is an amazing role model for a lot of people. But essentially, you just told us that your side piece broke it off with you, not the other way around. Which obviously begs the question, so if he didn't break it off with you, would it have continued? Would it still be going on now? And she says that, you know, she hasn't talked to him for a long time, but I'm not sure that's down to her choosing. Now, I understand throughout the interview, you know, she talks about how it was a journey for her, how it was a learning and discovery process in her journey in this life and so on. But not once does she even mention about how it might have made Will feel, you know, how it might have impacted him during her relationship with this other guy, or even how it might have impacted her kids. Had she even thought about these things? It's all about me in this interview, with very little mention of consideration for others while this was all happening. Because it sounds like she was only focused on herself during that time. Then this next thing that Will says is the most enlightening moment of the entire interview. To be in a relationship where you're both able to make mistakes without the fear of losing your family is so critical. I mean, wow, what a guy. He did 5% of the talking in this show and was the MVP of the entire game. Now, to give it to Jada, we do have to commend her for allowing to take the pokes and little jabs from Will throughout this interview. When he was playing around saying, you know, I'm gonna get you back for this, you know, I'm gonna get my revenge, you know, or the fact that I'm even talking to you is a miracle. You know, she just gave it to him. And I think we have to give it to her for that, because it's not easy for someone to be taking little jabs at you and for you to just sit there and take it. You know, it was very clear she had that expression of, I understand why you're saying it, and you know what, maybe I deserve it. But honestly, I think Will handled this entire thing so gracefully, and there's a lot that we can learn from him. It's not easy to just sit there and listen to your life partner, your loved one, talk about being with someone else behind your back, and essentially kind of justifying the actions for it through her own journey. There's a lot that we can take from this conversation, but honestly, we can take everything from Will at this point. One thing that they've shown through this entire interview is that friendship is the most crucial thing in any relationship. And you can tell that these guys are the best of friends. They're laughing with each other, laughing at each other. You know, there's a bit of poking here, a bit of teasing there. And they're even like, yeah, our marriage can be a bit of a bad joke sometimes, but this is our marriage and this is something that we're continuously working on. So whatever judgments you have about Will or Jada or about what's happened, we have to acknowledge their love and commitment to one another, which, to be honest, is quite rare to find these days. And realize that love, it's a choice. Loving someone isn't just about what you feel in yourself for that person, but it's about the action that you take to show that love for them. You have to actively choose to love that person every single day. And to be honest, by this point, most couples would have stopped choosing each other by now, and they both could have easily stopped choosing. But what do you think? Do you think that all mistakes in a relationship is part of the journey where you can both learn and grow from it? Or do you think that cheating of any kind is just a complete write-off? If you're looking for the one to spark up your love life, then make sure you subscribe to this wonderful tribe. And as always, keep it slick.
How?